This podcast is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Don't get spooked by planned giving. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. Making a gift that costs nothing during your lifetime is easy and revocable if things change. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about planned giving options. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding, TV sucking ideas from our head, public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur, yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hi, I'm Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. If you bear with me, in a few minutes you'll hear an interview with Mayor David Cassetti, a Republican who is running for re-election in the city of Ansonia. I've conducted a separate podcast interview with Alderman Phil Tripp, the Democratic nominee for mayor, which is a companion piece to this interview. The candidates did not receive questions or topics in advance. Neither candidate brought anyone else into the room or the office for these interviews. There were no pre-established rules of any kind. The content of the interviews has not been edited. I have inserted our sponsors' messages into this podcast. I have inserted intro and outro music, and I'm recording this intro to which you are listening. I've tried to make both interviews as fair as possible. With that goal in mind, after each interview was completed, I listened to the interview, and if I felt something said by the candidate warranted a response from another person, campaign, or third party, I reached out and gave people the opportunity to offer a short emailed response. With that being said, in this interview, Mayor Cassetti criticizes State Representative Cara Rochelle, a Democrat from Ansonia, who the mayor said, quote, hasn't been to my office once, hasn't talked to me about anything, told my staff that they have to be grown-ups, that we have to pay over the money to pay for the unfunded state mandates for the school system. In the context, at that point I was asking the mayor about last year's school funding lawsuit. In response to the mayor's comments, Representative Rochelle said, I'm deeply troubled by Mayor Cassetti's remarks and quite frankly very confused because immediately upon my swearing in, I reached out to Mayor Cassetti's office. Although Mayor Cassetti was apparently too busy to attend the meeting I scheduled, he did send representatives. I reached out on several occasions, the most recent being this week, to invite him to meet to discuss the increased state aid for Ansonia. I am always available and willing to talk to the mayor. If you would require further information, I'd be happy to provide documentation of the letters and emails I've sent to the mayor's office. Although I have some confusion about Mayor Cassetti's remarks, I am pleased that he is considering the funding of education since we are talking about our children's futures. Moving on, during the interview, Mayor Cassetti says that he feels Derby members of an Ansonia Derby School Regionalization Study Committee are not in favor of regionalization. Jim Gilday is a member from Derby and co-chair of the Ansonia Derby Committee. In response to the mayor's comments, he said, I'm not sure how someone who has never been to a meeting can offer an assessment on my thoughts or the thoughts of anyone from Derby. I believe that the sentiment from the entire committee has been that it's premature to have an opinion until all the facts are out. Clearly, we would not have committed 2 years of our lives to discuss this had we not been open-minded and prepared to move forward if the facts support that. Tara Hyder, whose name is mentioned in this podcast, you'll hear. She's also a member of the Derby School Regionalization Committee, and she said on May 30th, 2018, the VIS quoted Mayor Cassetti saying this about his appointed TRSSC members. I've been a proponent of regionalization for a long time, and so are they, the mayor said. That's why I put them on there. Mayor Cassetti is the one who seems to have had an opinion about regionalization right from the start. It's surprising that Mayor Cassetti makes assumptions about my thoughts, having never even met him. Everyone who knows me knows I gather as many facts as possible and then thoroughly analyze those facts so I can craft informed decisions based only in fact. That's how I function. This process is far too important to our children and taxpayers to politicize it. I welcome Mayor Cassetti to attend his first TRSSC meeting to become informed. Facts are important. Moving on, Mayor Cassetti in this podcast implied that Phil Tripp, if elected, wants to hire an economic development director and, in addition, a new grant writer, and that the two positions would be union positions, which would cost the city more money. In the interview, I tell the mayor that Phil Tripp did not say that when I interviewed him about the economic development position, and Mayor Cassetti acknowledges that he could be mistaken. In response, Tripp's campaign said the mayor has a long history of making statements that are ungrounded in reality. In 2017, in the Valley Indy podcast, he promised he wouldn't raise taxes. Then he raised taxes. He says Ansonia's economy has never been better. When the Department of Economic Development states it's never been worse, we just became the number one most economically distressed municipality in the state. The mayor seems to choose his own reality when the facts don't suit his narrative. Finally, at one point during this interview with Mayor Cassetti, under questioning about the Ansonia school funding dispute from a year or two ago, Mayor Cassetti says that in 2016, Carol Malone, then the superintendent of schools, and Bill Nimmon, school board chair, quote, sat in my office and they both looked at me and said, no one has funded us like you have, unquote, meaning that the district was happy with the mayor. In an emailed response, Tripp's campaign said the meeting did not happen. In an emailed response, Nimmon said, why do you continue to push the narrative about Dave Cassetti? He then suggested I follow up on a business transaction involving the mayor's former company. Merlone said there was never a meeting. My question is, why doesn't the mayor want to face an audience in a debate as opposed to a staged podcast where he has someone prepare his answers, or did I answer the question myself? Secondly, I never came in contact with the mayor or first selectman who do not understand the educational law piece. Mayors cannot take away money from BOEs once it is appropriated. Thank God for the increase from the State Department and Alliance Fund so Dr. DeBacco could hire back the needed staff. The city/Dave cannot take credit for that, end quote. Without further ado, here is my interview with Ansonia Mayor David Cassetti. Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll. You can follow the Valley Indy on Twitter or Facebook, or if you're listening to this, you probably know that already. My guest today is Ansonia Mayor David Cassetti. Mayor Cassetti, welcome back to Navel Gazing.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You were here. I mean, this is like, I don't know what I'm going to ask you today. You were here in 2013, 2015 in debate form. Yeah. So here we go. I interviewed your opponent, Phil Tripp, yesterday. I'm going to release these at the same time, basically. Sure. It'll take a couple of days for anybody who is listening. We're recording this on October 24th on a Thursday. And my idea is I've sketched an outline in my head of the questions, and I'm calling it UP.
Okay.
Which is a cliche and embarrassing, but unpleasant questions first.
Sure.
Going to go after you a little with poke the bear a little bit. Then your platform, essentially, to sort of review what you've done in Ansonia. Right. And then we might close it out. I have a feeling those two things are going to take up the full hour, but that's my plan.
Sure.
I want to talk about the school funding lawsuit first. That was a big issue in the city of Ansonia. The Board of Alderman, for anybody who doesn't know, took away $600,000 from the school district a few years back, and the state education department said the administration should not have done it. After what seemed like endless fighting between the city side and the school side, the lawsuit was eventually settled. The city paid about $850,000. Isn't it correct to say the city lost that lawsuit?
Absolutely not.
How so? Explain that to me.
Let me explain to you something. They sued us. We didn't sue them. They sued us because we held back the money. But we were trying to get information from them for them to be more transparent with their budget. Because every year since I've been in office, they ask for more and more and more, 7, 8, 10, 12%. This last time they wanted 28%. And I said, this is unsustainable. in this town, where we have a town with 38% on fixed incomes, 22% minority, that's 60% of our population. We can't get blood from a stone. So what we did is we held that money back until they were more transparent to show us their books. We went to mediation up in Hartford with Judge Holzberg. I said, Judge, I am more willing to give them the money. I'll give them even a little bit more money, but they got to be more transparent with their budget. I want to see how they're spending the money, because every year they come to us and ask us for more and more money. But it's like an open checkbook. We give them money, and they don't tell us where they're spending it.
Did you try going through, just to play devil's advocate, the traditional route, FOI commission,
Absolutely.
things like that? Or?
The Board of Education would not work with the city. They would not work with the city. They said it's none of our business. The president of the Board of Education said it numerous times. Don't answer them questions when questions were asked during the public session up at the Board of Education. Don't answer them questions. I feel that it was a win for us because we were able to get them to turn over. We got the visions.
When you say us,
the city of Ansonia.
Gotcha.
The city of Ansonia and its residents. So that now we're able to see how they spend their money. And it's already proven dividends, Eugene, because they brought back them 22 teachers that the former superintendent let go, and the class sizes are now reduced from 32 to 24.
Let's talk a second, though, because one thing that's being said, in fact, I think the state Democratic Party released a video a day or two or so.
Yes, I saw it. My daughter brought it to my attention.
Where there was we did an article, there was a press conference, I guess a year ago this month, where school officials said that whole dispute resulted in overcrowded classrooms. One teacher was holding back tears at this press conference, according to our reporting from last October, saying she was ashamed to say she worked in Ansonia. Do you think it had a negative impact on the classroom last year?
Well, they let go them 22 teachers or them 16 teachers that they let go. Of course, now they have to consolidate and make the classes bigger. But this was all a ploy on their part just to make me look bad. But that's why when I met with Judge Holzberg up at the mediation in Hartford, I said, I'll give them the money, but I want to see how they're spending the money. And now I'm able to see how they're spending the money. And as I stated, it's already proven it's paid dividends because them teachers are back and the classrooms have shrunk.
Would you change anything about how the city handled this dispute, given some of the pain it caused last year to students?
Well, I would have more mediation meetings and to talk more about it, just to see what their needs are. I mean, with our new superintendent, who I have a tremendous relationship with, a very good relationship working with him going forward, and we got some great ideas working together with him.
Well, how much did and this is totally subjective, but how much did personalities play into this dispute?
90% of it.
Because I know there's a toxic atmosphere, at least there was, and I guess I'm expressing an opinion, but just based on what people say, between certain members of the Board of Education. Sure. You and the former superintendent didn't seem to work well together. Is that accurate?
Well, I could bring people in that were at the meeting in 2016 when Carol Merlone and Bill Nimmons, the president of the Board of Education, sat in my office along with Lori Vaccaro and Pat Henry, Alderman in the 6th Ward, and they both looked at me and said, Mayor, nobody has funded us like you have. So what happened? So I have no idea. It's a personality problem. It's definitely 90% of it. But she has stated that, and Bill Nimmons has stated that I funded them more than any, and it's the truth. I have funded the Board of Education. It's first and top on my priority list to fund the Board of Education. I've given them over $4 million. When I first came to office, their budget was $27 million. It's now $32 million. That money came from the taxpayers without getting any extra money from the state. The unfunded mandates are $7-8 million. I had my staff meet with Cara Rochelle at Heavenly Donut, and our state representative, who hasn't been to my office once and hasn't talked to me about anything, but she told my staff that we need to be grown-ups. The city's going to have to pony over the money for the unfunded mandates to pay for the school system.
All right, well,
and
she's not in the room, though.
No, I know.
Just so yeah.
Well, I'm sure she's going to remark about it, but that's what she told my staff.
How about the mill rate increase?
Mill rate
because
there was no mill rate increase.
You ran. Wasn't there 0.48 in the last
yes,
time around?
we went up a half a mil.
So people are going to say you're the no tax guy.
Listen,
Mayor Cassetti, you raised taxes.
I got to tell you something. Charlie Stowe reamed me a new one. Let me tell you, son. He gave me hell.
Alderman
Charlie Stowe. This guy is staunch. He does not believe in raising taxes. But I said, Charlie, with the medical benefits and everything that have gone up, I mean, there's nothing we can do. I needed an extra $240,000. So I had to raise it up 0.48. Believe me, it was hard to do, and I did it in an election year, which is gutsy. It's very gutsy, but we've kept the line on taxes. We're still lower than when I took office. Now we had the state mandated revaluation,
right? Because the Democrats are saying,
oh yeah,
a lot that well, if you look at the last year, like 90% of property tax or homeowners saw an increase in their. I'm butchering this statistic.
No, it's 43%. 40%.
But they're saying like you should have adjusted the mill rate down or.
No, with all the expenses that we had, we needed to keep the mill rate the same. What went up were the 2-family homes, which were undervalued for years. For years, these 2-family and 3-family homes. And listen, I got whacked too. I'm involved in a trust in my family. We have over 8 houses that are 2- and 3-family homes. Their taxes went up. There was nothing you can do about that because they were undervalued.
Okay, and then switching gears, or not really switching gears, but the downgrade. I was surprised to see Ansonia along with Derby and Shelton.
Right.
And Shelton all had their credit ratings downgraded. But for years, and every 2 years when there's an election, the Democrats, your opponents, say the same thing. Team Cassetti has been draining the fund balance to stabilize taxes instead of cutting spending. And then this report from S&P Global Ratings says, quote, the rating action, the downgrade it means, reflects multiple years of reserve drawdowns, resulting in a decline in the city's available fund balance from 25% to 11% over 4 years. That's from Christian Richards of S&P Global Ratings. Additionally, we do not believe management is undertaking significant forward-looking financial planning beyond the next budget year, leading to a revision in our view of the financial management environment. That is from the report. I'll note that the outlook for the next 2 years is stable, but that seems to confirm everything the Democrats have been yelling about every 2 years.
They're disappointed because I used the fund balance for projects like we did the Wakely Avenue. For instance, they said that I took the $600,000 from the kids, as they say. They like to use the kids to pave Wakely Avenue. First of all, that was a grant. It was a $5 million grant from the state of Connecticut DOT. We had to put in 10%, which was $500,000. We took that from the fund balance. We're bettering the city. We're bettering the community. They held all their money in a big bundle and just left it there.
Meaning
the Democrats in the past,
ran the city.
In the past, they did absolutely nothing. I want Ansonia now is exploding with economic development all over the place. I mean, with our apartments going to be going online, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But, I mean, it tells you that the outlook is okay. Our outlook is good. But a lot of the affluent towns were downgraded. And we are still in the top tier as AA minus. We're still in the top tier. And we still were able to borrow money cheaper than any other town in the state other than Trumbull.
It's still considered a high rating, if I'm
It's
mistaken.
very high rating, very high rating.
So the plan is to grow the grand list. I mean, like, how do you use the information from that credit rating downgrade to better the city?
Well, we're doing it now with trying to build the grand list, which our grand list went from $850 million back when I took office. Now it's $988 million. I'm hoping to break $1 billion by the end of the next term, maybe even more into the billions. There's economic development on East Main Street, North Main Street, with the development of the 270 apartments.
Yeah, what's that? Is that A.T. Palmer or Crow? Help me out.
What it is we had a developer, and he came to me and he said, Mayor, I'm going to develop 153, which is where the senior center is, and 497. But what do we do about that albatross next to us, that 501, the processing lab?
Okay.
He says, I'm sort of a little leery about doing anything.
What developer was that?
That was Jerry Nocerino.
Okay.
So I said, well, Jerry, you know what? Let's talk to the the owner of 501, and that's Shaw Development.
Okay.
And we have an MOU already signed and ready to go. They got plans already at planning and zoning to put in 270 apartments to include that 501 Main Street, East Main Street. So all them buildings will be developed in the next 2 years.
Okay, just as somebody who's sat in Derby and Ansonia for 10 years and watched those complicated projects.
Very
properties.
complicated.
You're saying, because the cynical side of me goes, no way, this is election year.
Yep, I know. But you know, they're sort of treating me unfair because I have grand openings and announcements even on off years. It's every single week or every single month I'm having an announcement. It's not that I do it during election time. That it just happens to be election time, and these are what we're doing. These are the programs we're doing.
And so this apartment complex, as we tape this, you're scheduled to give a state of the city address tonight, but this podcast will not publish until a few days after.
Right.
But that's what you're going to...
Well, we're going to talk about...
have announced
We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the Olson Drive community.
Has HUD signed off on lifting the deed restriction that keeps
right
that
now?
only?
They got 60 days, and I think we're in day number 40. We got another 3 weeks before we hear from Chicago HUD releasing that.
Now that one is interesting to me. Olson Drive, which is formerly the Riverside Apartments,
Right.
111 units or whatever it was.
153 units.
And before the Valley Indy existed, I know the city was working under former Mayor Della Volpe. They
Right.
very much wanted to change those properties. The
Right.
buildings are run down.
Right.
If
Thing of the past.
crime had declined,
Right.
but people wanted those things gone.
Right. They were a thing of the past.
And I remember sitting at housing authority meetings before you were mayor, one meeting in particular where somebody from HUD came down and the city was kind of like, we open space, can we do something with that other than housing, clustered housing?
Right.
There's a lot of affordable housing in Ansonia already.
Right.
And HUD they lectured the housing authority and
Right.
basically said, no, this is our property, affordable housing
Right.
or federally subsidized housing must go there in some form. And now there's this move with the Primrose companies. They have an idea to develop the
Right.
property. The housing authority here in Ansonia has agreed to transfer the property to the city of Ansonia,
Right.
and you're waiting on HUD,
Right.
who actually controls the future of
Right.
the property, to lift this deed restriction.
Right.
But that's another one where people are saying your opponents. And on Facebook, there's even the use is garnering some opposition. But is that something that's real?
Yes. Yes, it is. It is real. Let
And
me
how
tell you,
did
it's
it come
economic
about?
development. It's going to bring in $500,000 in tax revenue. You know, I believe the former chairman of the economic development, William Loneski, stated that we should make it a park. Well, there'll be no income. Why would we make it a park? We got no income. Let's do this state-of-the-art facility, and we'll be generating tax dollars, bringing in over $500,000 a year in tax revenue. This is a no-brainer. This really needs to happen.
Do you think, one thing, and Facebook may just be, or social media, or the things that I hear may just be representation of a small part of the population. I don't know. But
We're going to find out on November 5th.
well, that's a good point. That's why you're a politician, Mayor.
We're going to find out on November 5th.
Because was there any effort, or are there any plans to sort of be more inclusive about the future of that property? And that's one of the things that William Loneski sort of pointed out in his letter. This is sort of being, from their perspective, forced upon us. The mayor and a couple of people have this idea for the property.
I really don't think it's forced upon, because I think in the past what they said was this is a floodplain. You can't put housing there. I wanted to put the police station there, but then it would require us bringing in over 400,000 cubic yards of fill to elevate it, to get it out of the floodplain, which it always would be in the floodplain. But I says it's too much money. This is a real good way to bring tax revenue in, this program that we want to do with the Primrose.
And I would imagine, for lack of a better phrase, I mean, beggars can't really be choosers. I mean, you got to the property's got to do something.
Gotta.
And the city can't afford to. The other thing is, people are saying, I keep seeing this comment that, well, we have Nolan Field right up the road. What's the difference between what is being proposed, this conceptual plan that's out there, and Nolan Field?
Nolan Field is where our sports teams in Ansonia play. This is going to be open to the public. Other towns are going to be able to come in and practice and do different things here for a fee.
And it's a private. This is a private development.
Correct.
John Geddes of the Primrose Companies
Correct.
is the one that's
very
interested in it.
reputable contractor.
How did one thing that interests me, and I've received emails about it. The city put out a request for proposals. I think it was an RFP for that property. I don't know if I'm using the right acronym. This podcast is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Don't get spooked by planned giving. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. Making a gift that costs nothing during your lifetime is easy and revocable if things change. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about planned giving options. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org.
Yeah, there was a request for qualifications, maybe.
Maybe that's what it
that's
was.
What
They put up a
RFQ.
document saying, hey, we want to do something with this property, recreation related.
Right, exactly.
And you had the Primrose Companies come in right away.
Yep.
Was there talk beforehand?
No.
Were you luring them in? Was an economic
No.
developer saying, hey, we've got this property? Or
No, we did the RFQ, and they were the only ones that responded to it for what we were looking for. Because I can't see leaving it a park and not bringing any tax revenue in. It doesn't make any sense. We got 13 other parks in the city.
And I guess from the perspective of your fund balance, and
Right.
It's an economically distressed city, just
Correct.
like Derby.
We
next
are
door.
we are number one distressed community. Have been for years.
So, and you're saying in 60 days, you
Right. They have 60 days in which to review
hear
it,
from
to
HUD.
approve it, and it looks promising. You know, Steve Nakano, who's a wizard with HUD. He works miracles. He's very sharp. I'm so glad to have him here. I waited 4 years, actually, to get him here. But now he's here, and he's working with HUD, Chicago, Boston, Hartford. He's got a good relationship with them.
And then the old HUD requirement and assertion that the land had to be used
comes off.
Because that's been doing the replacement units
Right.
for the federally subsidized units that were torn
Right.
down are now. Is that finalized though? Because I've heard sort of
They're still working on it.
could that be a hurdle if
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because we got the scattered sites all over the city of Ansonia to replace. We've already, I think there's 40 units. We already replaced 20 of them. We got 20 more to go. We're looking at other buildings around the city to purchase. The housing authority is rather to purchase so they can fill the other 20.
Okay. One thing I wanted to ask you about this split that occurred between you and Phil Tripp, although I didn't realize he was actually in office 2 years before you.
Yes.
But what happened between you and Phil?
I think it's personality issues. I mean, you know, he ran for state senate. And I can remember going to his fundraisers, me and Lori Vaccaro and our families, along with my daughters, going to his fundraisers and being the only ones there. And then when he lost, he sort of got bitter towards me and Lori. And I never could understand that. We were big supporters of her. My family, my brothers and mother gave him money, did everything for him. You know, I went out and campaigned with him. But when he lost that election to the state senate, he just soured completely. And I have no idea. I have no idea why he did that. I've always talked to him. In fact, he and people have come up to me and said, Mayor, I can remember Phil Tripp saying, Dave Cassetti's my best friend. And Phil said that several times to people. And now he doesn't even give me the time of day, doesn't even look at me, doesn't even talk to me.
Were you surprised when the Democrats
Oh,
endorsed
very
him?
surprised. It shows you they had nobody. They had nobody. They really didn't. They had nobody. You're telling me the Democratic Party got 4,300 registered Democrats in the town, and you couldn't find somebody. You had to go from. He had to switch parties, and you had to endorse him. It was sort of surprising, but that's where it is. That's where we are today.
The Ansonia Republican Party criticized Tripp for memes he had posted on Facebook, including one that said illegal immigrants are invading the country, basically, and responsible for bringing, quote unquote, eradicated diseases to the United States. And that's a meme that was widely debunked. But my question is, Tripp made those comments while he was a member of the Republican Party. Do you know why the Ansonia GOP waited so long to weigh in on these public posts if they were so wrong?
No, I mean, Phil is his own man. He says what he's been in, he's sort of a veteran. I mean, other than a veteran, he's a veteran in politics. I mean, he was there since 2011. So, we basically said, that's what he said. That's what he said. I mean, we didn't agree with him. I didn't agree with them comments.
How about in terms of, I had asked him, he said he's not going to vote for President Trump this time around in the U.S. presidential election.
Right.
And Trump has been criticized by Democrats and others for sort of perpetuating the same anti-illegal immigrant stereotypes.
Right.
Some say anti-immigrant.
And
are you going to vote for him again?
I disagree. I disagree with Donald Trump. Let me tell you, based on the candidates that they have in the Democratic Party, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I have to, because what I like about him is the economic boom that this country is going through, and the jobs that he's created and everything. His stance on immigration and the wall, I'm not for that. I am not for that. Believe me when I tell you.
Okay.
We are, as I stated, we have 4,300 Latinos in Ansonia. We have 2,000 African Americans and 1,700 Asian. I cater to them, whatever their needs are. The minorities are very, very near and dear to me. My grandparents were immigrants, and I look at them to help them. And they know, them three groups know, when they come to my office, they get results.
And then in terms of what term are you running for?
This is my fourth term.
Your fourth term, because I don't know how to add. So, I usually ask people, what's the most pressing issue facing Ansonia? I will do that for you as well. But
sure.
Take a moment. I mean, if somebody just moved to Ansonia and they're just reading the paper or listening to podcasts to try to learn what's going on in Ansonia, if you had to pick one accomplishment since first being elected in November 2013,
right.
I think it was?
November 2013.
What would it be?
My focus was on economic development, something that was missing in this town for maybe 20, 30 years. There was nothing was occurring. And I wanted to bring that to light. I wanted to bring economic development. When Farrell wanted to leave, I kept them. I lured Petter Packages here. I got Stanley Yogurt, who's going to be expanding to another 30 employees. I got Rugpad USA, who took over the old abandoned Farrell building, and they're refurbishing that. And I mean, we're going to keep taxes stable, and our education system. Now that we have a superintendent that is working collaboratively with the town, things are going to we're looking at the STEM program, which is science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing, where we want to entertain that to the students at a young age, because a lot of students, when they get out of 12th grade, some of them don't want to go to college or can't afford college. They could go right into manufacturing jobs or technology jobs, as it will be in the future.
And there's demand of that.
There's quite a demand. I've talked
pretty locally as
exactly.
well.
This is stuff I want to enhance for the students in Ansonia. We got 2,200 students in Ansonia, and a lot of them are going to go to college, but a lot of them are not. And we want to get them jobs. Right, as soon as they get out of 12th grade, they're going to find themselves getting into a job. They're going to be 18 years old, and they'll be set.
And then skipping around a little here, school regionalization. You appointed people to this commission. Sure. You were an advocate. You were actually criticized by members of the commission from Derby for advocating too much.
Yes.
They're saying, Mayor Cassetti, hold on.
It has to happen,
Stop
Eugene.
But they have to do they're saying like you're putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I know, but let them do
Stop being so
let
excited.
them do their work. But you could see already in the Derby crew of 5 people are not for this. You got
really? Okay. Why do you say that? I haven't been to meetings.
I don't know. I mean, it's something
but
about
Jim
a
Gilday is
mystique.
He's reputation. He's a very fair guy.
Who's that?
He's the chairman from the Derby side.
Jim Gilday.
Yeah.
Very good man. Very good man.
But you just said that
But he just seems like he's not in favor of it. I mean, this is my perception. Okay. Tara Hyder, she's criticized me and saying, how does he know it's going to be save millions? Of course it's going to save millions of dollars. You're going to combine everything, and instead of having 2, you're going to have 1. You're going to save money. And I don't know too much about Ron Leno, but
I don't want to go through all of them.
Yeah,
then I would email each and every one. You're creating more work for me here.
Yeah, okay, but it has to happen. Listen, they graduated 49 kids in Derby. Their football team is non-existent. I mean, we got a big game tomorrow, but it's just the rivalry. It's probably going to be a blowout again.
I live in Derby.
Half my roots are from Derby. I love Derby. My mother was born and raised in East Derby.
But do you think both communities will vote for it when it happens?
Yes.
Because my impression is that voters in Ansonia will reject it.
No. What I'm concerned about is there's 10 members, and if it goes 5-5 or 6-4 against, then it doesn't go to the voters. I don't think that's fair. I think it needs to go to the voters of both towns. Say, do you want this or not? And I think that it would win. I think I'm almost positive that it will win. That they would do it. They would want to do it.
And I might have already asked you this, but I'll ask it again and I don't know, I'm messing up. But so if reelected, what is your number one goal? Is there a particular project or issue or initiative that you're going to tackle on day one, assuming the people vote you in for a fourth term?
I said this 2 years ago, and I'll be the first one to tell you I said this. My main priority was Ansonia Copper and Brass, to get that.
That's the white whale.
Right. What I did is I got $3 million from EPA. They went in there and they cleaned it up, subsurface. Now I want to go down to Washington and talk with the delegation from the state, Rosa DeLaura, my good friend Chris Murphy, and Richard Blumenthal, about getting monies for the demolition of this.
And that's sort of a key. You need
that is the blank canvas that this city's going to grow on. This is what we need. Once we get that cleaned up and we open it up for redevelopment, holy cow, this town's going to be booming.
And then switching back to the buildings across the street there, because we went over that quickly.
Right.
But I just want to make sure I understand what's happening, because you've got Shaw and No Sereno.
Right, but No Sereno's out.
Okay.
He's out.
He's out.
He's out.
What happened there?
No, he. I told you that. He said, Mayor, I'm going to remodel the 153 Main Street, the Palmer Building, and then we're going to do 497.
It was going to be a brew pub with apartments
everything
on the top?
He said, but now we have that albatross in the back that we're hooked to, which is 501. They weren't.
Okay, so I didn't realize. So he's out of it.
Right.
Because he had like a 4-year option of some kind.
Yep.
And was using that as office space.
And he used the office space there. Right.
Okay. So now Shaw is doing. Shaw
will take over everything.
When didn't they?
Yeah, it was contentious. It was contentious. It was contentious, like the Board of Ed. But we negotiated with them. We talked to them. And we're working things out with them. We got an MOU, which is in favor for the city for them to proceed. They want to start bringing scaffolds in and start doing it. But I told them, before you do that, check all the windows, because I know a lot of the windows have some lead. And we got to get the environmental set.
And so what is Shaw going to build there? Just to say
apartments, 170 apartments.
170 apartments. And you had mentioned, do they have an application?
Yes, with planning and zoning.
Okay.
The architectural firm Fletcher Thompson is working with them. They're right here at 200 Main Street.
Okay.
And by the way, 200 Main Street and this building are slated for apartments after November.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
So that means you got to get out of here.
I might have a place on the first floor.
All right, good. I hope you stick around in Ansonia.
I've been here 10 years.
I would like you to stick around in Ansonia.
I'm the building's oldest tenant. All right, Big Y.
Yes, Big Y.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask my question. I got to get my fancy question out, man.
Sure,
go
ahead. Get your fancy question.
I don't have it. Big Y, there it is. 'Cause, government sometimes takes credit for stores opening,
right?
And sometimes they shouldn't.
Right.
Right. But then if you do that at the same time when somebody leaves, then you get hit.
Right.
So what's going on?
Okay. Right now, Alan Schwartz and Alex Goldblum are meeting.
Who are they?
They are the owners of that shopping plaza and managers of that shopping plaza. And it's advantageous for them to get somebody in there. And let me remark that the city of Ansonia is not losing not one penny in tax revenue. Not one penny are we, by Big Y leaving, not one penny of tax revenue. They still got to pay taxes on it. That's why they say it's advantageous for us to get somebody in there. Now,
you lose personal property taxes, though, don't you? From the stuff okay.
No, they're negotiating with someone. They're negotiating with somebody right now to bring somebody in. But as they stated, during negotiations, you learn this in Business 101. You don't divulge what you're doing. So right now they're working on things.
And it is. I guess it's too bad that Derby's gain is Ansonia's loss, because that supermarket is important to the city of Ansonia and the people that live
In this area.
Around the area.
Around the area, yes. I've talked to many of them in the park. I meet with them on a regular basis, the people in the park and the people that do the walking, and I told them something will come. So what I did is I called the state, and I said, listen, I want you to put bus stops along Pershing Drive and Division Street, because a lot of our residents, now that Big Y is left, need to go to Stop and Shop or ShopRite, and they need a bus stop. So we put 4 bus stops along Pershing Drive.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
And Division Street. The state have said, no problem, Mayor. We'll take care of that for you.
And then what role do you play in trying to get a tenant in there? I mean, it's a private ownership. It's a private deal.
Right. They're, really nothing. I mean, I call them on a regular basis, and they call me, and we talk and discuss things. And, but he's saying during negotiations, we're talking to a few grocers right now.
Okay, well, that's something.
We're waiting to see who got the best price.
Okay. How about in terms of bringing Kurt Miller in during the budget cycle?
Right.
On one hand, Kurt is like the king of the bond rating in the Valley right now, which he doesn't hesitate to bring up to people. Where
Right, exactly. He likes to throw that in your face.
Seymour maintained their bond rating, and
Yes.
they have a very strong fund balance.
Yes.
And he put together sort of this bipartisan group of strategic planning committee. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm stuttering.
Yep.
It's like Friday for me. And they're on solid financial ground.
Right.
So why did you bring him here and pay him $30,000? And why didn't the city use its own people that were already in house?
Well, Richie had retired. Richie
Richie
Bashara. Kim is new at the position. So I says, I wanted a second set of eyes on it. I worked hand in hand with Kurt downstairs in the Libro room, hand in hand with him putting this together. I think we paid him $27,000. That's what the bill ended up being. He spent an unbelievable amount of time there. I mean, Saturdays and Sundays we were there putting this together. And I wanted a second set of eyes, and I don't regret that. I mean, till I could find a finance director or a comptroller, that's what I plan on doing.
All right, so you might bring him in again?
I may, and I may not. I mean, I've talked to Rich Bashir about it, asking him, because his wife is telling him, hey, you're spending too much time at the office. I thought you're retired. He's a good guy, Rich. Tremendous person. But I may utilize him a little bit more. Now, I haven't decided yet.
I wrote a story on Kurt Miller commenting on the budget based on meeting minutes I had read, and I brought it up to Kurt in a previous podcast months ago. He sort of indicated, according to the meeting minutes, although he sort of said I misinterpreted it, and in Derby this has been brought up, these days of 0% tax increases to make people happy aren't sustainable.
They're not.
I mean, do you think these small tax increases like you did this year in Ansonia will become an annual tradition now?
Biannual. Every 2 years.
Possibly. So every 2 years you think there'll be tax
it's going to happen because of costs. I mean, look, I got criticized. A couple of residents came in and said, how come you pay Sheila O'Malley $130,000 a year? First of all, I consolidated Sheila O'Malley's job. I gave her the grant writer, which I eliminated, and the economic development. I combined them 2 jobs into one. I give her $92,000 a year. That's what she makes. And I saved on the benefit. I saved over $700,000 in City Hall expenses over the last 6 years because I consolidated jobs. I eliminated jobs. What I'm concerned about this election, and that's why I got to focus on this, and I got to let the residents know that what my opponent's planning is to bring in an economic development director and a grant writer, 2 people. Now you got 2 sets of benefit packages, whereas now I only got 1. And you're going to make them union positions. First of all, that position of economic development and grant writer are to come and go with the mayors. That's automatic. It's to come and go with the mayors. If you make them union positions, and no, I'm not against unions, but if you make them union position, you handcuff all future mayors because they're going to be stuck with them people.
Although when I talked to Phil Tripp, he didn't say that. He said he would keep the.
Well, these are what I'm hearing out in the street.
Okay,
so it could be all hearsay.
But let me just ask you a question.
Even what they say about me could be hearsay.
Then that's and that'll bring us to the other point about debate. But what you just said a few minutes ago, though. That could be interpreted as as big news because you said you envision small tax increases every 2 years.
Right.
At the same time, Republicans have been hammering the Democrats for past comments made by Tarek Raslin when he was a candidate for mayor, when he didn't rule out tax increases in that last debate we did together in 2017. So, but now you're saying, aren't you going to lose votes now by saying,
well, no,
every 2 years tax increases?
I'm saying it could be every 2 years of a tax increase. I'm not going to raise taxes every year from now on as long as I'm mayor, but unhidden bills. I mean, you're going to see insurance rates go up, salaries go up. I mean, where are you going to get that money from?
Okay. Let's talk about the debate real fast here at the end. The Democrats are saying, well, we want to do a public debate at the high school. What happened there? And what do you think?
Well, you saw what happened last year or 2 years ago with everybody that was sitting up at the booth, up at the...
I wasn't at that one, actually.
No, you weren't?
No.
Oh, all right, but
explain
the
it
kid,
to me.
You had a 17-year-old kid ask me about the fund balance. I looked at him and said, "Don't you have a girlfriend? I mean, you're 17 years old and you're worried about the fund." They prepped them, and that's what the Democrats will do. They'll bring all their people in and start yelling and screaming. We don't need that. This is where you do the debate here as a podcast, so that the whole city, not a select few, get to hear it.
Okay.
And that's why I wanted to do it here with him.
Would you have been open to, because what happened to, if anybody doesn't know, I put out an invitation to both.
Right.
I mean, I think it would have been great to hear the two of you ask each other questions and counter each other. Because I'm in a position where I'm accepting information, but I don't have comebacks or follow-up questions for some of the things you're saying, because... that's what a debate is for. But Phil Tripp said no, his campaign said no, and they wanted to do something at the high school. Yeah. But there didn't seem to be any format. It seemed like the Democrats wanted to put something together.
I'm the incumbent mayor, he's the challenger, and we got to run by your rules.
So would you have agreed, or maybe it'll still happen between now and Election Day, what would need to happen for you to debate Phil Tripp at the high school?
No, I don't want to debate him at the high school. I want to do it here. I believe we do it. This is where I did it with Raslin. This is where I did it with Adamowski. The first time I did it at the high school with Delavolpe, but I think this is where we need to do it at.
Oh, okay. That's surprising, actually. So even if we set something up, you still wouldn't do a debate like you did in 2011?
No, so that was 13. No, I want to do it here. I want to face him.
Okay. Those are pretty much all my questions.
Really?
Mayor. Yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else you want to add? We're at the 39-minute mark. You talk fast.
I know, but I'm asking the residents of Ansonia. For 6 years, there's been nothing but an economic boom in Ansonia. As I stated before, you had 87% of the storefronts on Main Street empty. They're now 87% full. I mean, we have a booming Main Street. Economic development is booming. I mean, we got apartments coming online. Why would we want to return to where we were 6 short years ago? Why? It doesn't make any sense.
All right, Mayor, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For whatever year in a row, I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day. Online clickbait a prurient way. It's free information here to stay. Not even hookers give it away. Advertising, metastasizing. shrinking, constant attrition. We'll ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur. Deadlines, bylines, pictures too. An editorial comment for a buck or two. Fire down the block, the murder next door. And now we wonder what it's all for. Social media coming free to you, funny pages, the mayor's wages, criminal seats, corruption schemes, ink state wretches asking tough questions. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. The presses are running all through the night. We're printing the truth with all of our might. We're platform agnostics, got that interweb too. Buy an ad, see what we can do. We still have subscribers, still have our fans. We're here every day, so give us a chance or we'll make an art stand. Just hold us in your hand, we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.